Okay. Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to the Rendezvous. Glad you're here. I've been trying to shoot this video for about, well, it feels like a couple years, but it's been a while. I can't get it going. So first, let me get one thing out of the way, and then maybe I can stumble through this. What I have here in front of me is the D500 Nikon. It's a DX camera. The lens is a 200 to 500 zoom lens f5.6. It's a good setup, and I like it, and I use it quite a lot. On the menu of this camera, on the I believe it's a shooting menu with the one with the little camera body in it. There's an option in that called image size, I believe, and you click on that, and it opens up another little screen that says DX, and then down below that it says 1.3x. Today we're talking about the 1.3x option, which increases the apparent magnification of this lens an additional 1.3 over the 1.5 that you get because it's a DX camera. Oh, Lord. Anyway, so you don't really increase the magnification of the lens, and I'm sure as shooting gonna infer that somewhere in this video. Just pretend I don't say that, because this lens does not increase the magnification. It is the field of view which increases, not the lens. Not the lens at all. I'm having so much trouble with this. I'm just stumbling my way through it. Anyway, so anytime I say the lens has increased magnification or anything close to that, just ignore it. Just ignore it. I'm going to keep going on. So a few weeks ago, I did a video that showed me at my cabin with this same camera and same lens. I was photographing small birds one summer, and it was a nice little video. But I got some comments on it, and one comment was from George. And George asked me if I'd ever used that 1.3x feature with this lens. And I told him I had, but I'd never really pursued it and taken it seriously. And that got me to thinking maybe that wouldn't be a good video. Yeah, why not? So I thought I'd try it. So I've been spending the last 2 weeks with this camera and lens, and I've been trying to find enough things to photograph for a video. And it's winter up here, and I've had trouble. Other people won't have trouble in Alaska. I have trouble. But I did come up with, I think, 10 photographs. And one of them's pretty neat. Pretty neat. I'll show it to you here pretty quick. And I wanted to tell you how I used this lens and how much. It was fun, really. So I didn't shoot anything else besides this camera, and it's at full magnification. See, there I go. So when this lens is zoomed out to 500 millimeter, which is the maximum this lens can zoom out to, when you add up the additional 1.5 from the camera body sensor and then the 1.3 from the program, from the menu, you end up with a lens that has a field of view of a 1,000 millimeter lens. In other words, you're zoomed way out there, folks, and it brings things up really close. Again, I say this lens does not get more powerful. It's not the lens. It's the magic of the digital age. It's magic. Anyway, so most of the shots I made were handheld. Amazingly, with the VR, when it's working, and I've been having trouble with the VR on this lens, not working. That's another story. I might do something about that in a later video. But anyway, so I handheld everything. I tried to shoot everything at 500 millimeter on the lens, which gave it an apparent view when you look at the pictures of using a 1000 millimeter lens. I'm doing pretty good so far. This is confusing. Now, a lot of people say that you don't need to use the 1.3 feature in the menu because you could just take the picture and crop it, in post processing. Yeah, that would probably be good, and you could do that. But I like a challenge, and I kind of like composing in camera, so I put it in a 1.3 menu image, whatever, folks. I'm just going to run this. I'm just going to run this video. I've been struggling, so I just put it in 1.3 and start shooting. Now, when you put this camera in 1.3, a little rectangle pops up in your screen, okay? And that rectangle gives you an outline of where you should compose your image. Anything you want to be in your image has to be inside of that rectangle, and I'm putting I'll put a picture of that actual rectangle here so you'll see what it looks like. So that really cuts down on the area that you can use for an image. And when you shoot in 1.3, instead of I think 21 megapixels this camera has, you drop it down to 12 megapixels. So the actual image size is a lot smaller. Anytime you're in the 1.3 menu, your image is going to come out as a 12 megapixel picture. It doesn't bother me. I can make nice, pretty large images with a 12 megapixel camera. Anyway, yeah, because the D300, I think, is 12 megapixel. We used that for a long time, made some nice images with it. So 12 megapixel isn't that bad, in my opinion. Anyway, I shot all these pictures. I shot a lot of pictures. A lot of them didn't turn out because of the 1000 millimeter field of view. It's not easy to hold a camera steady, with that enlarged of an image. Yikes, I don't know. Anyway, when I tried to do a landscape picture with this, I always had it on a tripod. And then I can, the settings didn't matter because I thought I could use however long a shutter speed I needed. And I used a low ISO in a f8, f11, sometimes f16 aperture. And I thought, it's on a tripod, what the heck? It's going to work. And so I started taking early morning landscape pictures of the sunrise and the mountains and stuff. When I got back to the computer with those images on my SD card, I started finding out that it doesn't work. No matter how solid your tripod is, when your magnification is that much, dang, you're gonna have troubles. You're gonna have problems, and I did. They weren't in focus. They were shaky, even on the tripod. It took me a while to figure out that I needed to change something, and I finally figured out kind of what it was, but something I can't change. One of the things is, but I did figure out, I had it on a 2-second timer. I figured that was enough time, to get the camera from shaking from me pushing the shutter button. Turns out 5 seconds is a lot better than 2 seconds. Okay, so I fixed that. But I still was getting not good images. So I got to looking, I put it on the tripod and looked through the viewfinder and see what I could see. And you know, it was a little breezy up here, just a little, but it didn't take anything to, at 1,000 millimeter, basically, to shake that camera. You could see it shaking, and just a little breeze. And we were having more than a little breeze, actually. So there's one of the problems. Another thing I noticed in the viewfinder was the distant mountains. The minute the sun came above the horizon when it rose in the morning, you could see heat waves running along the edges of the mountains. I was looking at a mountain 50 miles away, and I could see those heat waves just rippling along up the side of that mountain. And so it made me realize that heat waves are a problem when you're zoomed out that far. So I don't know what to do about that. I guess you just got to be careful, because you can't get rid of them. They're there. You got to find a time of day or a location where you don't have those heat waves, because they'll mess you up. What happens is, like I'm shooting at 50 miles, so I've got 50 miles of heat waves compressed in between my camera lens and the mountain. 50 miles of heat waves coming up like that. Yeah. So that's a problem with long distance landscape pictures with high, very, very high magnification. Don't know how you can fix that, actually. But I did get one. The picture I'm going to show you here pretty quick. That's a pretty good picture, and we'll take a look at it in a minute. Another problem, and with this camera, and this is with shooting birds in flight, which I tried to do a lot. I've never really done birds in flight before. I thought, what the heck, just get a picture of a bird in flight. So with this zoomed all the way out and the small little rectangle in the viewfinder, that's still no problem. Folks, it took me a long time, a lot of practice before I could even get a dang bird in the viewfinder, let alone get him in that little square. And but I got so I could almost do it accidentally once in a while. And it takes a lot of practice. If you're going to do birds in flight with a really long, apparently long lens, well, you got to practice. And so my settings for birds in flight, here's what I did. I set the camera on shutter priority, set my shutter up to around a 4,000th of a second or more, even sometimes. I went f5.6, and it's on manual exposure. No, I'm on shutter priority. That's right, shutter priority. And so I got, say, I set a 4,000th of a second, aperture 5.6 or 8 probably, and then I set my ISO to auto ISO, so I could let the auto ISO take care of exposure, and I would just live with any noise that appeared. I was happy with that. I also set my shutter to continuous high, and it will take a picture no matter if it's in focus or not. It just doesn't matter. What else did I do? Oh, let me tell you about that. A couple more settings. I'm going to put a picture up here and show you what I'm talking about. So on the right at the top, there's a button. Oh, where is it? Right here. Okay. Where is it? Oh, yeah. No, it's on the right-hand side. Excuse me. Oh, man, we're just doing it again here. So right here, this top button here, when I push that, it gives me a little virtual horizon or a little horizon marker inside the viewfinder, see if I'm level or not. Down here, this button right here, I've got it programmed to switch between the 1.3 using the, if I push this and use the rear wheel on this camera, I can go into standard length, focal length. I push it again and turn the rear wheel. It takes me right to 1.3 mode. That's pretty neat. I can go instantly from one to the other, and I like that. Also on the back, what is it called? I got it all wore off. This button, I think it's AF on or something. If I push this while I'm photographing birds, say, I can switch from group focus, which is what I normally use for trying to get these birds. And if I push this button, it changes it right back to single frame button, single frame focusing instantly. This is really a neat feature right there. So I can, if I have a bird that's flying and it lands in a tree and there's branches in front of it, I can push that button and get to single point focus and get in a little spot where I can see through the branches with it and get focused on him. It's a neat feature. I'll put that picture up. I took some pictures of it and kind of tried to mark what they're for. You can change, go into your menu and you can assign those features to these buttons. Now, where was I? So I shoot at high ISO mainly, and I worry about it later. And I did get some good bird pictures, and I got one pretty good landscape picture. Also, if you're in the 1.3 mode, go into live view. Live view. And you can do video in the 1.3. It's cool. So I'll put there's a 16-second video. I think it's 15 seconds. And I'll put it up here and you can look at it. There's not much going on. I was hoping there would be a eagle or an airplane or something going on there while I was videoing, but I never got that. So it's just this Mount Good that I can see from my deck. I can see 50 miles to Mount Good, and that's the mountain you're going to be looking at with the trees these trees in the foreground are about probably half a mile away. It's kind of a boring video, I guess, but it is a video and it is kind of pretty and it's kind of calming. So I'm going to shut up here and let you watch that, and then I'll be right back. No, that was cool, don't you think? I liked that video. And I think there was so much, folks, there was so much I wanted to talk about here. Let me look at my list. So here's something. When you put this 200 to 500 lens on a DX camera, you're increasing, and then use a 1.3 mode. Your zoom range, apparent zoom range, is not changing the zoom of the camera, but it's changing the field of view. So it's equivalent to a 390 millimeter to a 975 millimeter. That's apparent focal length. It's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of range there, and it's so amazing to me that I can handheld at that, at those focal lengths. Just so much different than it used to be back in the film days, where you couldn't hold anything over. I mean, if you were shooting at a 30th of a second, you might as well handheld with the telephoto lens. You might as well just toss it out, everything. But anyway, so let's take a look at this picture, shall we? All right, you're gonna like it. I hope I like it. And like I said, I'm gonna after we look at this photo, I'm gonna show you some of the pictures I've taken, and I'm gonna start hoping that hoping I haven't forgot anything. I know there was so many things I wanted to talk about, but I think I tried to give myself too big a chore here. You know, it's a mind when you get older. You know how it is. No, maybe you don't. So here's this photograph right here, folks. There you go. This is such a neat picture because the scene you're looking at here is the sun rising directly behind Mount Good. Let me get it down here. You're directly behind Mount Good. I seen this beginning to happen when I was photographing one morning, and I thought, well, that sun is going to come right up behind Mount Good. Mount Hood. Anyway, so I got my tripod all set up, and I worked on exposure. This was a hard one to get the exposure right because of that bright sun. This is not quite full zoom on this. I'm a little under on this. But I took quite a sequence of pictures as that sun, it moved across from left to right. And I just was hoping that I got something, and I did. I love this picture. And it's a rare picture because this actual scene only happens maybe twice a year, and you only see it if it's not cloudy, because the next day, probably that sun would be higher than the mountains. That's how much it moves here in Alaska in, just a short time. So I was just there at the right day and the right time. It's a good picture, and it's pretty, and I printed this out on Epson cold press natural. And now, don't laugh because my exposure settings are wonky because I wasn't even looking. I was just trying to get I wanted to get a good look in my camera, and I was not even paying attention. So here is the exposure on this. 1/4000th of a second at f/25 ISO 100. That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, that's the wonkiest exposure I ever heard of, but it seemed to work. So, and also down below that mountain, there you see just the shadow of the trees in there. So I like it, and yeah, it printed out real nice. So if you, in the description below, I'm going to leave a link to my SmugMug gallery where there's 10 photos, and I've got a bunch of other stuff I'll put in there. Probably anything that I used in relation to this video, I'll have in there. I just kept trying to add stuff. I don't know. I apologize. Anyway, so yeah, if you are bored, grab your Nikon and a telephoto lens and put her in that 1.3 mode and just walk around looking for stuff. If you got VR, that's all the better because you're going to need it unless you use, like I did sometimes. I was right up to 1/8000th of a second at times. Craziness. It's just crazy, man. Anyway, so let's jump right over to the video, and that will end to the video of my photographs that I've taken. There's some neat, I gotta say it, I'm not bragging, but there's a few out of 10 pictures, I'd say 7 of them are exceptional to me. I mean, maybe not to everybody else, but they're They're interesting pictures. So yeah, let's go watch those pictures, and then that'll be the end of the video. And I hope it hasn't been too much of a disappointment to you. But folks, this is probably my 15th time of trying to film this little segment right here. I started early morning yesterday, and it's just been crazy. I've just been walking around talking to myself. Anyway, you guys watch these slides, and hope you enjoy them. And we'll talk to you next time you come back by, if you do. All right, let's watch them. Here we go. I really love this picture of this eagle. It's such a pretty bird there, and the sun is behind it. It's late in the afternoon, and the sun is getting low, and I like the way it lights up those feathers on the wings, and I like the fact that the eye is sharp also. And what really makes the picture, though, I think, is the clouds that are, that gray color on the left and the bottom, but then there's that brighter spot on the right-hand side of the picture, and that eagle is right in the middle of that bright spot. It's a cool picture. I like it. I think this is the same eagle at a different time of the day. It flew over me 3 times during the day, and it would just, every time it got near me, it would kind of pause and do a circle or two, I think it was challenging me to try and get a good picture of it. But also the eyes are sharp on this too, and it's, the sky is so pretty with the clouds in the lower right. It just makes a nice picture. This picture of the eagle is different than probably any I've seen before. It was more of an accident than anything else. I didn't plan it this way. It just happened to fly into my viewfinder at that spot, and somehow I think I must have focused on the wing, because I would have been focusing towards the center, and I think I picked up the wing and made everything sharp. I like to look at the little feet there. They're all twisted around. It's a cool picture and a different perspective of an eagle picture. It's all handheld. All these pictures you're going to see on this set of pictures were handheld except for one, and I'll try to remember to tell you which one that is here. This is a cloud formation. Pretty clouds. I got it. It was a sunset, or sunrise rather, and the sun had come up, and these clouds formed off to the side, and I thought they were pretty. I took a picture of them, and I had to edit it in Lightroom because not Lightroom, Photoshop, because Photoshop didn't know what I wanted, and I wanted to make it look like I remembered seeing it, and this is how I remembered it, and so I had to work on it a little bit. This picture shows Mount Good, which is in the Chugach mountain range. I checked on Google Earth. It's 50 miles. That pointed mountain is 50 miles from Wasilla. So that's quite a distance here. And this is early morning sunrise. I always think it'd be nice to have an eagle perched, in one of these trees in the foreground. Those trees were half a mile away probably, and so I got quite a bit of magnification on this with the lens. If you look at the top of the mountain there, you'll see puffs of darkness. That's snow blowing off the peak of the mountain, because the whole week it was windy here in Wasilla. And it also made, well, not just in Wasilla, but all over this part of the state. And that made taking photographs even more challenging. But this is a nice picture. I like the way the clouds are hanging low in that valley below the mountain there. This is the picture I used a tripod with, because I saw that where the sun was headed. This is a sunrise, and that peak is Mount Good, but the same mountain you just looked at. And I could tell by looking at the sunrise that that sun was going to end up, seemed like it was going to end up right behind the mountain. And so I got to working on getting my exposure right, and luckily I got it pretty good. And it came out really nice. This is, in my opinion, this is a rare picture because this only happens, if you're able to see it, it will only happen twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. The sun moves so much from day to day that probably the next day, if I'd have been there and it was a shot available, that the sun would have probably been at the top of that mountain by the next day. It just moves so quickly across the sky. This is a picture of a sundog, that colorful area in the sky behind these branches. It wasn't near this big in real life, but with the 500 millimeter lens, at the 1.3 mode, it got pretty big. I took a picture of just the sky at one point, and it didn't look right, so I moved around till I could put these branches with the buds on them in front of it. Not a real exceptional picture, but it is colorful, and I kind of like it. This picture took me by surprise. I was coming out of my studio with an armload of stuff and with my camera on top of all the stuff, and I took a few steps out of my studio, and I could hear this helicopter coming off from my right. And I thought, man, that sounds like a pretty good-sized helicopter. And I thought, I'm going to put this stuff down. I put it all down and grabbed my camera off the top. And by the time I had done that, this Chinook helicopter comes flying in towards me right over my house. Seemed like it was about treetop high, but it was higher than that. But it just, perfect placement. It just not quite right over me, but enough where I could get enough to the side where I could get the windows and some of the side there, not just the bottom of the helicopter. It was kind of a cool thing. I had my camera set on the shutter on high speed, and once I got it in the frame where I wanted it, I just held that shutter button down and clicked it until it was further away. I only got about 3 or 4, maybe 5 pictures that are actually usable, but I like this one best because of the blue sky and the color of the chopper. Cool picture. It was just an unexpected thing that happened in my house, at my house. I was sitting on the deck, which is where I sat a lot of the times for these pictures, and I noticed this magpie fly by and then land on the branch on this dead spruce tree. It was about, I'd say, 40 yards away from me, but I lifted up my lens and took a few pictures of him. Didn't think much about it. It's a magpie, and it took off, and I didn't think anything about it until I came into the computer and put it on the screen here, and I thought, what the heck? I mean, magpies to me are black and white. That's the way I see them. I didn't realize that they had all these colors. I just didn't realize it. I think it's a black-beaked magpie, and what beautiful colors he has, or she. I just stood and looked at it. I mean, not stood, but I sat here and looked at the colors on that. I couldn't believe it. And actually, after I had it edited, I had to go back in and subdue those colors because it didn't look believable to me And so I took the saturation out of it quite a bit. It looks believable now, but I think those colors are pretty bright. It's a beautiful bird. I'd never given magpies enough credit, I guess. Anyway, I'm glad I took this so I can see what I'm missing when I look at a dang magpie. Okay, so I'm sitting outside in a chair and just looking at the sky, and nothing's happening. It's getting pretty boring sitting there. So I'm thinking about, going in the house for a while. And I'm just about to get out of my chair, and I notice some out of the corner of my eye, I see movement, and so I turn, and there's this bald eagle coming in for a landing in the top of this spruce tree, and I lifted my camera and clicked off a few shots real quick, and this was the first image that I took, and it's a dramatic image. I only wish that the eye was more visible here, but the drama of the wings and they're up above his head is really cool. And I don't know how I got it in focus at all. It was just sheer luck. That's what it was. My camera was set on the group focus, and also I have a button on the back that I push that will instantly change from group focus to single frame focus. And I think I must have pushed that button instinctively and got it to a single frame. And I probably got it to focus in that area there where my cursor's at. But yeah, this was an amazing picture, and I'm glad I got it. It's a cool picture of an eagle. Same eagle, about maybe half a second, or probably 30 seconds later. These photos were underexposed because of the bright light. Both of these photos were. But I like this picture. He's got the eagle eye. At least you can see his eye, and he's a pretty stately looking bird. So that was fun taking these two pictures of this eagle who just appeared out of nowhere. I don't know how I focused this. I think I probably was focusing maybe down here, I suppose, in the with the single point focus in my camera. That was a hard job getting focus on these two pictures. I just wish this bird would have stayed around a little bit longer. He was a little bit scared of me. I was moving around too much for him, but I'd sure like to have been able to get a more clear shot. So that's the end of my slideshow, and that's also the end of my video for this week. I sure want to thank everyone for coming by. I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate those comments and the likes. I try to answer all the comments. I think I miss one or two once in a while, but I'm trying to answer everything. And I'm just glad you're here, and I want you to come back. So that's about it for now. And I'll see you again next week. And you guys take care and have a good day. Bye now.